Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Astro Consciousness channel. I'm Millie, and I am here to give you your forecast for the week of March 3rd through the 9th. In this channel, we talk about the astrological energy of the week ahead and how you can integrate it into your personal and spiritual growth. Welcome to March. It is probably the most important month of the year that I think is going to help move things along that have felt stuck and stagnant, whether it's something very physical and literal in your life, or perhaps the rushing or the movement of certain stuck energy and emotion in your body. If we're talking about the astrology, we need to remember that 2025 is one of those years that is unlike any other. If there is any year to compare 2025 to, is 2020. And this really marks the beginning of a new era. And so our bodies run on frequencies as much as they do on, the physical organs and the skeleton that's there. So we are feeling this shift, right? Notice how your nervous system is doing. Notice how your sleep is going. Notice how much energy you do have and don't have, especially after we've entered Pisces season. Now, just because we've entered Pisces season and something feels draining or a situation feels draining, it's not just Pisces season. There is something about the energy that you are surrounded by, whether it's people or the places that you're in, that is showing you this is draining your energy. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Now, before I hop onto the first week of March, I want to give you a few bullet points of some of the themes that I feel very certain after studying the astrology that we are going to experience throughout the month of March. The month of March is not just, oh my gosh, Venus retrograde, oh my gosh, Mercury retrograde, oh my gosh, two eclipses. That is a lot. But in order for us to understand the true significance of a month like March, we have to take it into the context of the time that we're living in and what 2025 is really about. Again, 2025 is a year that is the beginning of a new era. So, how does that then inform the significance of March as much more than a month that has all of these events that represent certain things, and then we just go about our way and never think about them again? I really doubt that March will leave us with a feeling of something's going to happen and I'll never think about it again. There are energies in March that are incredibly supportive for forward movement, faith over fear, following our dreams, following our intuition, moving forward in our path. And so because it is so saturated with Pisces energy, with transformative karmic energy like eclipses, right? There are also very definitive events, very definitive decisions that will come in the month of March that I think are going to extend themselves throughout the month of April and perhaps even May. Okay. So, first thing I want to name that I think is so important, if you see me looking down, is because I have all my notes. First thing I want to name with the overall energy of March is that we are going to really want to pay attention to the way that we are speaking to ourselves, right? The way that you talk to yourself matters. When we are in a time like eclipse season, in a time of a Venus retrograde, in a time of a Mercury retrograde, there are a lot of things that tend to shake up in our lives, right? So they create a lot of internal dialogue because we're trying to figure out how to navigate it. We're trying to figure out how to do life differently, the decisions that we have to make. What does this mean? How do I move forward with this? If all of this is activated and there's so much energy touching the North Node in Pisces, Sun in Pisces, Saturn in Pisces, Mercury is going to retrograde from Aries back to Pisces. That means that Virgo, the South Node in Virgo, is also going to be activated. And we're going to have the first lunar eclipse in Virgo the second week of March. Why is this important? Because the lower expression of Virgo is extreme criticism of another, pinpointing every little thing that is wrong instead of focusing on what can be different. Now, one of the things we're going to really have to keep in mind is that that Virgo energy is has the tendency to say, this is what air quotes right looks like, and this is how I want it to be, because that's what doing it the right way is. And realizing that with these two retrogrades in the month of March and two eclipses happening at the same time, what is right is really only in accordance to our point of view of life, which is going to bring up a lot of things in relationship. So, if we are mindful of the way that we are speaking to ourselves, if we are mindful of the internal dialogue, if we are mindful of the judgment that we may have of ourselves or others, then communicating in relationship is going to be much smoother. Because with everything going on, relationships, the truth of the foundation of relationships is going to come to the surface in a way that it hasn't and it probably won't again. Maybe not till the next eclipse season, but even then, not as much as March. It's going to rise to the forefront of our awareness to where we can no longer deny where we stand with someone. This is important, again, because if we take it to the context of what 2025 represents, and it's a new era, and we have this new opportunity to show up differently to our lives, to create a different life for ourselves, who is coming with us and who's not? I think that we don't even have to wait for the first week of March to really understand this. One, I think it's been happening since the beginning of 2025. We're really seeing how we are fitting in or not in close relationships. But I think that that last week of February, when Mars went direct in Cancer, that really showed you the pace and I think the road that people are on. What are you excited about? What are you looking forward to? How are you handling uncertainty? How are you handling solutions? How are you listening to one another? Right? And this can be in friendships and business partnerships and romantic relationships. Is your outlook aligned? Is it supportive of how you want to feel in your, just even in your day-to-day life? Right? So I digressed a little bit, but this is so important because March is not just a month filled with events. It's filled with events for a reason. Okay, another point that I wanted to make is I jumped ahead. Who you surround yourself with, do they support you or do they not? Right? How do you feel after you after you leave an interaction with someone? How do you feel after you share some good news with someone, right? I say this because March is going to be a month that for a lot of people is going to manifest a lot of wonderful opportunities. Don't forget that the accumulation of Pisces energy and the magic that is eclipse season, regardless of the Venus and the Mercury retrograde, creates this really beautiful, magical, miracle like energy in the air. If we focus on looking at life through the lens of a miracle, what can change for you as an individual? So, those who you surround yourself with, do they support you or do they not? And here, the only thing that this is making clear is that you are on your path, you're on your journey, they are on their own path, they are on their own journey. So, how does that communicate to you and inform you as to how certain things feel, right? In your life, where you're going, what does that look like, right? I think one of the best indicators is how your body either expands or contracts when you receive a text message from someone, when someone calls you, when you have coffee with someone. Do you want to? Right? And you have to be very, very honest with yourself because one of the things that's going to happen as Venus retrogrades in Aries is the relationship that you have with yourself and how are you honoring what you genuinely want or don't. Okay. Um, Endings in relationships. This isn't to scare anyone. If your relationship is going well, then it's not like something is all of a sudden going to happen that it's a rupture that you didn't see coming. There is something about March that, as I mentioned a few moments ago, is really going to highlight the foundation of relationships. Again, friendships, romantic relationships, business partnerships. And with a Venus retrograde, we can somewhat prolong the process of that potential rupture. With the Mercury retrograde, we might try to work things out. With the two eclipses, which is a time of where the soul takes the wheel and says, this is what's real. This is what your soul wants to experience and not. These interactions are distracting you from what your soul came here to experience. The ruptures in relationships, you want to take them as the thing that needs to happen for you at this moment in time. And I'm saying it this way, not to instill any fear, but look, if we are looking at 2025 as a year where everything changes, why would you want to remain in the same interactions? I invite you to really think about who are the people that you're closest to right now, right? How are you feeling around them? Are you excited about things together? Are you cheering each other on? Are you supporting one another? Do you have the same values, right? Because when Venus goes retrograde, we are reevaluating our values, perhaps even redefining them. This is important. And so this level of honesty of how I'm talking about things, it's one because I take this seriously. And I think that the moment that we are experiencing at this time is important for all of us and for collective awakening and collective consciousness. And whether you realize it or not, the way that we live our individual lives emanates a certain energy that affects the collective. And we have to get very honest about that. Another thing to keep in mind for the month of March is remembering that your current situation is not permanent. Everything passes. This too shall pass. Okay. Why? Because the retrogrades are going to move over from Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac, the ending of a chapter, to the first sign of the zodiac, the beginning of a new one. This is a month that's really going to realign us if we allow ourselves, and during eclipses, I don't see how we do not, to realign us with what is meant for us. And so, if you are struggling, if you are having difficulty perhaps finding work, having difficulty finding a place to live, the call is really inward. Okay, what in my frequency, what in my energy is a little bit scattered? If I spend more time going inward than trying to find outward solutions and trust that the solution will come to me, not because I'm being passive, but because I'm actually doing inner work and minding what's going on within me, then you are realigning yourself with a different expression of your life that I would not doubt you that you see differently come September and October of 2025. But you have to be willing to take responsibility of your well-being, of your state, of your energy. There's something about March that I think is going to show us in a really tangible way where our mindset is. Remember, our thoughts create our reality. And this isn't just about saying a bunch of positive affirmations. This isn't just about journaling a bunch of positive things. No. When it comes to eclipse seasons, we cannot hide what's really going on inside. So if we are just saying a bunch of positive affirmations, but internally we don't believe it, internally we're saying, yeah, but that's not actually going to happen. If we are having conversations with our partners in friendships or business partners, and we're saying, yeah, this is what we're going to do, but nothing is happening, nothing is changing, then there is a disconnect in the frequency of energy. It is not on the same wavelength. And you have to look at that for what it is, because what this shift in energy promises has the potential to be really beautiful and exponential significantly. And you want to be very honest about that. You want to take that very seriously. Okay, finally, one of the things you're going to want to keep in mind, particularly with the Venus retrograde, and I think that this is just something important to keep in mind for ourselves, because like I said, March is a month that I think is going to manifest a lot of beautiful things for people. If you're minding your mindset, if you're doing the inner work, if you're choosing faith over fear every single time. And remember, the South Node is in Virgo. And so the South Node in Virgo is reminding you, how are you showing up to these practices day to day? How are you showing up for yourself day to day? How are you minding your inner dialogue? Virgo is the energy of consistency and routine. And there is no way that we can simply just adapt a different way of thinking, a different way of relating by having one conversation, by saying, yes, I'm going to do that, and never showing up for it again. Consistency is important when it comes to having a spiritual practice and is important when it comes to manifestation. Because if we don't show up and take action, nothing is going to happen. But when we take action and from a space of, I believe in myself, I believe in what's possible, then that very magical manifesting energy of Pisces has something to move through, and we can see it in our external reality. What does this have to do with jealousy and envy, which is what I wanted to touch on? With Venus retrograde, that tends to be a theme that comes up a lot. I've noticed it a lot just in conversations, whether it's personal or with clients. During Venus retrogrades, the feeling of like jealousy and envy comes a lot, right? And so whether it's like jealousy in romantic relationships or like envy of why do they get to have that? Like I want that, or why don't I have that? One of the things that you really want to, or the way that you really want to hold something like that, if it comes up for you or you're the recipient of that from someone, because you can feel, right? You can feel when someone is envious and not in the best way, is remember that that is just a trigger of something much more profound. If you're on the receiving end of that, don't take it personally because it doesn't have anything to do with you. Don't shrink your light, don't shrink yourself so that someone else doesn't feel a certain way. You have no control over that. It is, and if anything, it's you trying to manage someone else's experience when it's not your responsibility to do so. If you're someone who is experiencing these things, this isn't about judging yourself. This isn't about beating yourself up. This is about saying, what's underneath that? And really taking the time to get curious about that and becoming mindful that you are not dependent on someone else doing something differently so that you don't feel this way. This will especially be true if jealousy comes up in relationships, right? They need to stop doing that so that I don't feel jealous. That's not how it works. You cannot control who a person is or what they do, right? You can only be responsible for what's coming up for you, getting curious about it. What does it mean? What is the wound that's deep down inside that is asking for your unconditional love so that the trigger becomes less triggering? I think that March is a month full of miracles. I think that March is a month that brings us a lot of insight. It's a great month to do mindset work because the ability to go from seeing yourself in a certain way, from only thinking that you can only go so far, if you stick to some kind of mindset work, reading certain books, doing your meditations, doing breath work, really minding your internal narrative, you can see a significant shift from the beginning of the month to the end of the month. Okay. So keep these themes in mind throughout the month. Write them down somewhere because you will notice that. You will notice how they come up in whether it's in your personal life, or you notice it in conversations, you notice it in interactions. So, with that said, let's get started with the week ahead. I think it's important to name also that the weekend of March 1st and 2nd, Venus went retrograde in the sign of Aries at 10 degrees Aries. Okay. So, on a very personal level, for those of you who have the eclipse guide, you know that I touched on this Venus retrograde being about so much more than just the ex coming back, receiving a text message from the ex, someone from your past coming back. That's always possible, absolutely. But this is so much more about when we take it in the context of what a year like 2025 is about how am I coming back to the relationship to myself? What does that mean? What does that actually look like right now? Right? That's why I gave you those themes at the beginning of the video that you keep in mind in March, because it's so much more than just 1 week. A month like March is really difficult to break up into days, into weeks, because it's one big energy. It's one big thing all happening at the same time. And so a lot of times how people like to look at astrology is what's happening on this day, what's happening at this time, and how do I wait for it to manifest and happen? And then when nothing happens, it's like, well, astrology doesn't work. That's not how astrology works, especially a month like March. Astrology, when used as a tool for self-awareness, as a tool for self-improvement, you are considering all the parts at the same time. And that can be overwhelming if you are distracted by things that are not important. Or you can get centered and ask yourself, what is my soul asking me to step into right now? And so a Venus retrograde in the sign of Aries is the coming back to self, the relationship to self. And when Venus in the retrograde cycle goes back into Pisces, it's going to be about what part of myself, what version of myself am I parting ways with so that I can give the part of me that is emerging a true chance. And the way that that is going to manifest in your external reality, you will notice, right? Venus, the relationship to Aries courage, having the courage to have a different relationship with yourself that then is going to result in a different relationship with other people. Venus in Aries is the initiator of something, right? And so, what are you trying to initiate? What do you want to kind of start all over? I think also in a really like simplistic way of interpreting a Venus in Aries is Venus, relationships, Aries starting again. So the potential to transform and heal a relationship in March is also there. But here's the thing, both people have to be on the same page. This cannot happen if one is trying to fix it all for the other, because the foundation of relationships is really going to come to the forefront of your awareness. This Venus retrograde is going to be so transformative. I'm personally looking forward to it because I've set intentions for myself, right? Because I've set intentions for what I'm going to do for the month of March, what I'm going to focus on for the month of March, because I understand this miraculous quality that March has. We do not always run into that. We do not always have the opportunity in this way with so much accumulated energy to hone in on something so specifically. Are miracles always there? Can miracles be normalized in our lives? Absolutely, that's always there. But the thing is that in March, we have this opportunity that if we set the intentions, we can really rewire the part of us that doesn't let them come in. And Venus retrograde, if we don't just focus on external relationships, especially if they drain us, we can focus on the relationship with ourselves. Monday, March 3rd, we have Mercury in Mercury enter the sign of Aries. Okay, this is important because Mercury entering the sign of Aries, that means that it's also in its pre-retrograde shadow phase. Okay, so notice how we now have a Venus retrograde. We are technically in eclipse season, and as Mercury enters Aries, it's in its pre-retrograde shadow phase. So what does that mean? That anything that we begin talking about, that we begin thinking about, that we begin to negotiate on, it's going to go through a process that things are probably not going to unfold as quickly as we like. That can be really frustrating, especially with a Mercury and Aries, which wants things done quickly, wants clear communication, is very direct, very to the point, sometimes quite aggressive, but it is what it is. There are things, there is information that you do not have right now, especially when it comes to certain negotiations, right? That you do not have right now that is going to come later on. Now, if you find yourself, right, signing a new contract, signing a new lease, things like that, where the rest of the world doesn't stop because it's Mercury retrograde and eclipse season, unfortunately. Um, Make sure that you understand clearly what you're signing, that you have someone else look at it. Just do your due diligence. Life doesn't stop, but do your due diligence, right? Another way that Mercury in Aries is going to unfold over the next, I would say, 6 weeks, really through mid-April, is that our forward vision, forward, Aries, vision, Mercury, what we're thinking about, how we see things, what are we excited about? What are we communicating about? Again, it's so important. The power of our words, the power of our thoughts, the power of the people that we surround ourselves with. It is all energy. It is all energy. It is all very real, and it all impacts our life. I invite you to pay attention to the last week of February. Who were you talking to? What were you talking about? How did you feel about it? Right? Because that week was such a great week for forward movement, for signing important things, for, doing something about this forward vision, Mercury and Aries, and notice the interactions that you were having. I felt very fortunate because there was something really big that happened that last week of February for me. And the way that I connected with my partner, super huge for the both of us. Friends that I was telling, right? They were super excited. They were celebrating. Like, that's what we want. That's what we want. And at least in my life, it's that or nothing, because I am a great cheerleader of others. And if others aren't cheering me on in the same way, then that's okay. I don't need it. I don't want it, because we are clear. Those that are clear right now, those that are clear right now, you want to protect that clarity that you have. You want to protect it because it's precious. Clarity is precious. Your focus is precious. Miraculous energy is precious, because these are the tools that we have, especially when the world around us, with there's so much going on, right? And these tools are the tools that we have to actually make the world a better place. And you have to begin seeing yourself that big. You have to begin seeing yourself that important, because this has nothing to do with ego or arrogance or, being or bragging about yourself. This is about seeing yourself through the lens of source, through the lens of the universe, through the lens of God, because that's what we're being asked to step into right now. And anything other than that is very small. And you're only keeping yourself, if you are not living in alignment and in integrity of that level of showing up for yourself and your life and your dreams and your desires, you're not doing not only not yourself any service, but also not the world. And so Mercury and Aries is like a new beginning in the way that we see ourselves. We have to understand, right? It's so one of the things that I try to keep in mind when I'm interpreting astrological energy is that I'm not going to sit here and interpret the energy as a Mercury and Aries as someone who is direct, as someone who is fiery, not just that. We have to understand the psychological workings of ourselves and what's happening right now, right? Because otherwise, continues to be this thing that is separate from us instead of a thing that we're integrating into our personal and spiritual growth. So the reason that I'm mentioning that is because I think that it's important for you to begin looking at how these energies are unfolding in your own psyche and your own spiritual awareness and growth, as opposed to going on Google, reading a book, Mercury and Aries means this. And that's why I was fiery. And that's why I said the thing without thinking. No, but what does that mean? Especially in a time like March and eclipse season. There is not much happening on Tuesday, March 4th, which takes us to Wednesday, March 5th. On Wednesday, March 5th, we have Mercury in Aries create a sextile to Pluto in Aquarius. I love this. I love this. I love this. This is communicating more clearly, communicating more confidently, having a much more confident mindset in the self or the invitation to do so, right? New ideas, feeling inspired. If that's the case for you, if you have new ideas and you're feeling inspired, just let things unfold, but don't let up, right? If this is coming to you or manifesting to you in new agreements, get excited about them. Make sure that you're not saying yes to things just because you're saying yes to something. Something like a Mercury in Aries that is going to retrograde and a Pluto in Aquarius, which is so new and so potent. You want to feel like a full-bodied hell yes or it's a no. You want to be very mindful of that because then with Mercury going retrograde, you're going to change your mind and you're going to ask yourself, why did I get myself into this? Why did I do that? Right? But Mercury in Aries, sextile Pluto, because Mercury is going to retrograde, they're going to connect a few more times between now and mid-April. So this is great energy to focus, right? Anytime that Mercury and Pluto come into connection, it's intense focus. Now, what you intensely focus on, completely on your level of consciousness, completely on what's important for you right now. Because with so much Pisces energy in the air, we can be focusing on things to dissociate, to disconnect from our power. We can, don't forget that this isn't just us, right? This isn't just happening to us, this is happening collectively. Some of the information that we may be receiving, some of the information that may be given to us, there is this energy of very intensely trying to get you to focus on something else. Be very mindful of what you are putting your time, energy, and attention to. There's not much happening on Thursday, March 6th, but Friday, March 7th, you really want to pay attention to how you're feeling because that is a week after the new moon in Pisces of February 27th, and it is a week before the first lunar eclipse in Virgo that's taking place. Okay, whenever we have that week in between lunar events, we might feel a lot. Things might move very quickly. Remember, March is a month of miracles, and when miracles take place, things happen very quickly. Things are removed from your life very quickly, or things come into your life very quickly. And it's not up to you. That's what we call divine timing. And if there is any month where that's going to happen, it's going to be March. Maybe the first 2 weeks of April, but especially March. Trust divine timing. Connect with divine timing. Invite divine timing into your life, right? For those of you who have the Eclipse Guide, that daily meditation, one of the things that I say in that daily meditation is I choose the will of my higher self instead of the will of my ego. Because this is the time to focus on the will of your higher self. It's okay to not know what to do. It's okay to not be clear on where you're going. Ask divine assistance, ask for divine assistance, ask for divine guidance. But here's the thing, make room in your life, in your body, in your mind for that divine assistance to come through. Because if you ask for divine guidance and assistance, but you're still focusing on small, petty things, those two energies are not in the same frequency. One of the things we're going to begin to notice from 2025 and on is that things like energy, manifestation, frequency, what are we like the energy that we're vibrating at? Um, we're going to see those things happen much, much more quickly. The turnaround time on manifestations, we're going to notice it. That's beautiful. Oops, drop my books. That's beautiful. But we have to come back to ourselves, right? Now, we all have lives, we have families, we have things that are going on, we have work. Some people are moving, some people are starting new jobs, have some people are new parents. All of these things are happening. And the way that I invite you to think about these things is how is what I'm focusing on and what I am allowing to happen in my life actually good for the other parts of my life, right? How am I taking a moment to focus on my connection to source and spirit because I know that that's actually really good for my partnership, my children, my relationship with my parent, with my siblings. If that's, especially if it's certain relationships that you're trying to work on. Um, the reason that my books almost fell is because I was grabbing this book. You can't see it because of the blur. It's The Map of Consciousness. It's called The Map of Consciousness Explained by David R. Hawkins. I think that this is a great book to read or to listen to during eclipse season because of the possibility of miracles, especially in the shift of mindset. Okay, Saturday, March 8th, the Sun in Pisces trines Mars in Cancer. I love this energy. I love, love, love this energy. It's active all weekend. Sun in Pisces, right? The identity, our ego, the sun connecting to Piscean energy, to soul energy, to ethereal energy, to God consciousness. These two connecting, Sun and Pisces, right? Trining Mars in Aries. Mars, the planet of action, of assertion, of confidence, right? Or aggression, anger, resentment. In the sign of Cancer, which is I'm moving in the direction of what feels better and safe for my well-being in the long run. I am moving in the direction of being my own self, of being a better self parent, making decisions from an unconditionally loving place that support where I am going, Mars. These two energies, ooh, beautiful. Because what is this connection between the sun and Mars is what are you showing up for? What are you taking action towards? And in water signs, how does it make you feel? I can see this being like an emotional thing. Like this is such a beautiful weekend for anyone who's moving into a new home, right? Sun and Mars, we gotta lift up the couches, we gotta move heavy furniture around. But the water energy is like, oh my God, I'm in a new place. That feels so much more expansive. That feels so much more like me. And that invoking an emotion of, wow, I'm leaving that place behind, which represented so much of who I was. And my physical, tangible reality is an expression, an external expression of who I am now and where I'm going. Oof. And so take the components of that example and what is that weekend showing you about where you want to go? How do you want to feel? I will be here week after week to remind you of that. Guys, if there is anything that I have personally learned in the last year and a half, is that the people that you keep around you make a significant difference in your life. Your friendships, your relationships, the relationship that you have with partners, a significant difference in your life, especially as we continue to move through a year like 2025. Because our souls, and this isn't just about like, oh, they're my friend, they're not, right? I'm placing boundaries on my mom. Again, not that those things are not important, but we are moving beyond that. Because those that understand that there is a mission, that there is a purpose of why they're here, need others around them to reflect the same back to them. And if you are experiencing that sense of, yes, purpose, I want to move forward, and there's people around you that don't feel the same way, nothing wrong with that, but you owe it to yourself to give yourself the opportunity to ride the wave of the beautiful, promising energy that 2025 has. Is it going to dismantle things? Yes. Will we face some difficult times? Perhaps. I don't think that there's anyone who can say that with certainty. But where are you? How are your relationships? Eclipses tend to be big, big for relationships, which is kind of why I talked about it so much in this video. But they're only a reflection of what's happening inside. And it's not like, oh, they're bad, so I'm bad. It's not like that. It's about what is that showing me about what I genuinely want to experience and not. One of the things that I noticed in the last week of February is how many like um I with my friends we're excited about new beginnings, we're talking about it, we're excited about projects, right? For other people, it's the opportunity to go on business ventures and collaborations with other people, really big, right? New beginnings for people in pairs. There's a lot to be excited about if you give yourself the chance. Thank you so much. May this all be of service. Don't forget to grab your eclipse guide, and I'll talk to you next week. Much love.